Welcome, curious minds. Imagine, for a moment, leading hundreds of thousands of people through a desert for decades. How do you possibly keep them organized, fed, disciplined, and, moving toward the promised land? That's really our mission today.
Yeah.
We're taking a deep dive into the very practical, often surprising, and sometimes incredibly challenging realities of nation building on the move,
Yeah.
as revealed in the Book of Numbers.
Yeah, and what's so compelling here is that it's not just a historical story. It's really a window, isn't it, into how a community forms its basic structures,
Right.
how they face these huge challenges, and the unique laws that govern their lives during this absolutely pivotal time. We'll be looking at really detailed records. Censuses, camp layouts, specific legal cases, even moments of, profound rebellion.
Exactly. It's less about abstract ideas and more about the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
The real nitty-gritty of how an entire people navigated the wilderness, guided by what they believed was divine command. So get ready for some pretty surprising facts and some serious lessons in the logistics. So let's start right there with the logistics. The sheer scale of moving a whole nation, the Book of Numbers actually kicks off not with some grand story, but with an incredibly detailed census.
Right, and this wasn't just counting heads. It was essentially a military organization project on an epic scale, taken right there in the desert of Sinai. First day, second month, second year after leaving Egypt.
And the purpose, to count every single Israelite man, 20 years old or more, who could, serve in the army, by clans, by families.
Exactly. And they appointed leaders to help Moses and Aaron, one from each tribe. Figures like Nahshon from Judah, Eliezer from Reuben. These were heads of their families.
And the total number they reached?
It's staggering. 603,550 fighting men.
Wow. Over 600,000.
So this wasn't some small nomadic group wandering around. This was an army, a nation on the move. And that demanded an almost, unimaginable level of organization.
And you see that reflected in the camp layout, right? How they were supposed to arrange themselves.
Absolutely. Precision was key. They were to camp around the tent of meeting the sacred center, but at a distance. Each tribe under their own standard, with their family banners, divided into 4 main sections.
Okay, so walk us through that.
So on the east, facing the sunrise, you had the division led by Judah with Issachar and Zebulun. That was about 186,400 men. They set out first.
Right, first out.
Then, on the south side, Reuben, Simeon, and Gad. That group was around 151,450. They'd set out second.
Okay.
Ephraim, Manasseh, Benjamin, smaller group, about 108,100. They set out third.
Got it.
And finally, bringing up the rear on the north side, Dan, Asher, and Naphtali. The largest single contingent, actually, over 157,600. They set out last.
And the marching order followed that same pattern.
Meticulously, guided by specific trumpet blasts for each group. This level of precise organization right in the middle of a desert, it really speaks volumes about the value they placed on discipline and their sacred duties, doesn't it?
It really does. Incredible logistical planning. But okay, amidst this massive military census and this, highly ordered structure, there was this one group set apart. The Levites. They were specifically not counted with the others for military service. So what was their unique role?
Yes, the Levites. This is a crucial distinction. Their role was entirely sacred. They were appointed exclusively to be in charge of the tabernacle of the testimony. Everything about it, its furnishings, its upkeep, its transport.
So a dedicated team just for the tabernacle.
Exactly. And it was considered so holy, this duty, that anyone else even approaching the sanctuary, unless they were a designated priest, was to be put to death. It really emphasizes that separation between the sacred and the everyday.
Wow. Serious stuff. And even within the Levites, their duties were broken down further, right? By clan?
Correct. You had the Gershonites, about 7,500 males, counted from 1 month old and up. They were responsible for the tabernacle's coverings, the big curtains, the ropes. They camped on the west side.
Okay.
Then the Kohathites, around 8,600 males. They handled the most sacred objects. The Ark of the Covenant, the table, the lampstand, the altars. Basically what the text calls the most holy things. They camped to the south.
The most holy things.
And here's a really key detail about the Kohathites, a critical rule. They must not touch or even look directly at these holy items before they were covered, or they would die.
So Aaron and his sons, the priests, had to go in first.
Precisely. They had to cover everything completely before the Kohathites could even come near to carry them. It shows an almost unbelievable level of reverence.
That's intense. And the third clan?
The Nazirites, about 6,200 males. They handled the heavy structural components, the tabernacle's frames, the posts, bases, crossbars, all the courtyard stuff. They camped on the north.
And Aaron and his sons, the priests themselves.
They camped on the east, right at the entrance, overseeing the entire sanctuary operation on behalf of all the Israelites. Eleazar, Aaron's son, was named the chief leader of the Levites.
And the transport instructions. They were also incredibly specific, weren't they? I remember something about carts.
Yes. The tribal leaders provided 6 covered carts and 12 oxen. 2 carts and 4 oxen went to the Gershonites for their duties. 4 carts and 8 oxen for the Merarites, because they had the heaviest loads, the framework.
Okay, that makes sense.
But here's the thing. No carts at all for the Kohathites.
None, even though they carried the most holy things.
None. They carried the ark, the table, all of it on their shoulders.
Wow. That makes a powerful statement about the reverence required, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It visually marked those items as exceptionally sacred. And the age for service was specific too. Levite men served from age 30 to 50. After 50, they retired from the heavy lifting, you could say, but could still assist their younger brothers.
And they even had a special purification ritual.
They did, sprinkled with water of cleansing, shaved their whole bodies, washed their clothes, brought specific offerings, and the other Israelites would lay their hands on them, sort of dedicating them as a wave offering to the Lord. It just highlights, again, the incredible level of specialized labor and the immense value placed on order and sacred duty within this, mobile community.
So moving beyond the big picture logistics, let's dive into the practicalities of daily life, the specific laws that govern them out there. Purity seems like a huge theme.
Immense. Anyone with an infectious skin disease or certain bodily discharges or anyone who became unclean through contact with a dead body, they had to be sent outside the camp.
Why was that so strict?
Well, the text explicitly says it was to prevent defilement in the very place where the Lord was said to dwell among them. So it wasn't just about, say, physical hygiene, though that was likely part of it. It was fundamentally about maintaining spiritual sanctity within the community space.
Right, protecting the sacred center. And what about social order? Like if someone wronged another person?
There was a clear restitution law. If you committed a wrong against someone, which was also seen as being unfaithful to the Lord, you had to confess it. Then make full restitution for the damage, plus add 1/5 of its value.
Out of faith, okay.
Yeah. And if the person wronged had no close relative to receive the restitution, it went to the priest, ensuring the debt was paid one way or another.
And then there's that really specific, almost strange-sounding law, the law of jealousy.
Ah, yes. Numbers chapter 5. It is unique. It was a ritual for a husband who suspected his wife of infidelity, but crucially had no witnesses, no proof.
So what happened?
The wife was brought to the priest. She brought a specific offering, barley flour. Significantly, no oil or incense was added. The text says it's an offering that reminds of guilt. The priest would take holy water in an earthenware jar, add some dust from the tabernacle floor, connecting it to the sacred ground. He'd loosen the woman's hair, give her the offering to hold, put her under oath, and then make her drink this bitter water that brings a curse. The curses themselves were written on a scroll by the priest and then washed off into the water she was about to drink.
Wow. So it was like a trial by ordeal almost, appealing directly to God.
In a sense, yes. It was a way to resolve suspicion when human evidence failed. If she was guilty, the text says her abdomen would swell and her thigh waste away, and she'd become accursed among her people. But if she was innocent, she would be unharmed and, importantly, able to conceive children, proving her innocence.
It certainly reveals a society with very clear rules, even for difficult, private matters, and a deep belief in divine justice intervening.
Absolutely. Clear rules, serious consequences, and this constant emphasis on purity, both personal and communal, and devotion.
And vows were a big deal too, right? Like the
Yeah.
Nazirite vow.
Yes. Number 6 details the Nazirite vow. This was a special vow someone could take, male or female, to separate themselves to the Lord for a period. It involved 3 main things: abstaining completely from wine and any grape products, even seeds or skins.
No wine, no grapes at all, okay.
Second, no razor could touch their head. Their hair had to grow long for the duration of the vow as a visible sign. And third, they couldn't go near a dead body, not even their closest family members, like a parent or sibling. It required extreme ritual purity.
What if they accidentally became unclean, like if someone died suddenly nearby?
There were procedures for that. They'd have to shave their head on the 7th day of purification, bring specific offerings on the 8th day, and then restart their vow period. And when the vow period was successfully completed, there was another ceremony involving offerings, shaving the consecrated head, and burning the hair with the peace offerings.
That sounds like a serious commitment.
Very much so. But alongside these individual vows, you also get the famous priestly blessing in number 6, the specific words God commanded Aaron and his sons to use when blessing the Israelites.
The Lord bless you and keep you.
The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. A beautiful and enduring piece of liturgy.
It really is. And there were rules about vows made by women, too.
Yes. Numbers 30 deals with that. It's quite detailed. Basically, a man's vow was always binding. For a young woman still living in her father's house, her vow was binding unless her father heard about it and overruled it immediately. His silence implied consent. Similarly, for a married woman, her vow was binding unless her husband overruled it when he heard it. But significantly, the vow of a widow or a divorced woman was always binding. She was considered legally independent in that regard.
That's interesting. It reflects different stages of life and authority structures and offerings. They seem constant.
Oh, absolutely central. The dedication of the tabernacle itself, described in number 7, was an incredible display. Over 12 days, the leader of each tribe brought identical lavish gifts, silver plates, gold dishes filled with incense, animals for burnt offerings, sin offerings, fellowship offerings. It was quite the event.
A coordinated effort.
Very much so. And beyond that special occasion, numbers 28 and 29 lay out the regular schedule of offerings. Daily offerings, morning and evening, extra offerings for the Sabbath, for the new moon festivals, and then specific larger requirements for the major annual festivals. Passover, the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost, the Feast of Trumpets, the Day of Atonement, and the Feast of Tabernacles. Each one had precise prescriptions for the types and number of animals, plus the accompanying grain and drink offerings. The rhythm of life was marked by these sacrifices.
It paints a picture of a life deeply intertwined with ritual and remembrance. And speaking of offerings, how did they handle sin? Was there a difference between accidental and deliberate sin?
A very important distinction laid out in Numbers 15. For unintentional sin, sins committed inadvertently or out of weakness, there were provisions for atonement. A young bull for the whole community if they sinned collectively, or a female goat for an individual. Forgiveness was granted after the priest made atonement.
Okay, so mistakes could be rectified.
Yes. But then there was defiant sin, or sinning with a high hand, as some translations put it. This meant sinning intentionally, knowingly, rebelliously, showing contempt for God's word. The text says anyone who sinned defiantly, whether a native-born Israelite or a foreigner living among them, was considered to be blaspheming the Lord. And the consequence was severe. They were to be cut off from their people. Essentially, excommunicated or possibly even executed, depending on the context.
Wow, that's a stark difference. Do we see an example of that?
We do. Later in that same chapter, Numbers 15, there's the story of a man found gathering wood on the Sabbath day. This was seen as a defiant violation of a core command. He was held in custody, Moses inquired of the Lord, and the command came back. The man was to be stoned to death by the whole assembly outside the camp.
So a public execution for breaking the Sabbath.
Yes. It served as a powerful, albeit harsh, object lesson about the seriousness with which they were expected to take God's commands, especially foundational ones like the Sabbath.
And to help them remember all these commands, there was even a specific instruction about their clothing, wasn't there?
That's right. At the end of Numbers 15, the Israelites are commanded to make tassels on the corners of their garments throughout their generations and to pin a cord of blue on the tassel of each corner. The purpose was explicit, so that you may look upon it and remember all the commandments of the Lord to do them, not to follow after your own heart and your own eyes, which lead you into whoring. It was a constant, visible reminder to stay faithful and obedient.
Fascinating. What do these laws, some of which seem quite archaic to us now, tell you about their worldview, their relationship with the divine?
Well, I think it shows a worldview where every aspect of life, personal hygiene, social interactions, worship, even clothing, was seen as potentially connected to their relationship with God. There was a strong emphasis on holiness, separation, order, and accountability. The divine wasn't distant, it was right there, dwelling in the midst of the camp, and that presence demanded a certain way of life, down to the smallest details. It reinforced their covenant identity constantly.
Right. But despite all this structure, all these rules, the journey wasn't exactly smooth, was it? The Book of Numbers really captures some intense testing times. Grumbling seems to be a recurring theme.
Oh, definitely. It starts pretty early. In Numbers 11, the people complained about their hardships, just general complaining, and the consequence was immediate. Fire from the Lord broke out on the outskirts of the camp and consumed some of it. The place got named Tabra, meaning burning.
Stark warning.
Yeah.
And then came the food complaints.
Yes, specifically craving meat. The text mentions the rabble among them, possibly non-Israelites who came out of Egypt with them, started it, but then the Israelites joined in, wailing for meat. They were tired of the manna, which interestingly is described here like coriander seed, looks like resin, and tasted like cakes baked with olive oil. Apparently, even miracle food can get monotonous.
Huh. I suppose so. And this put immense pressure on Moses, didn't it?
Tremendous pressure. Moses cries out to God in desperation. It's a really raw human moment. He says, basically, why have you treated your servant so badly? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth? That you should tell me to carry them in my bosom like a nurse carries a nursing child? He feels completely overwhelmed by the burden of leadership.
It's so relatable, even for a figure like Moses. How did God respond?
God tells Moses to gather 70 elders of Israel. Then God takes some of the spirit that was on Moses and puts it on these 70 elders. And when the spirit rests on them, they begin to prophesy right there around the tent of meeting. It was a way of distributing the burden, sharing the spiritual leadership.
And didn't a couple of them prophesy back in the camp?
Yes, Eldad and Medad. They hadn't gone out to the tent, but the spirit rested on them too, and they prophesied within the camp. Joshua, Moses' aide, hears about it and wants Moses to stop them. He seems concerned about preserving Moses' unique authority.
But Moses' reaction is amazing.
It really is. Moses says, "Are you jealous for my sake? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord would put his spirit on them." Such a generous spirit, wanting God's presence to be widespread, not just concentrated in him.
Incredible. But what about the meat they were craving? Did they get it?
Oh, they got it. God sent a wind that drove quail in from the sea, massive amounts. The text says they lay piled up around the camp about 3 feet deep for a day's journey in every direction. People gathered quail for 2 days straight.
Wow. Be careful what you wish for.
Exactly. Because while the meat was still in their mouths, before it was chewed, the Lord's anger flared up again, and he struck the people with a very severe plague. Many died, and the place was named Kibroth Hattava, which means graves of craving, a grim reminder of the consequence of their discontent.
And it wasn't just the general population causing trouble. Even Moses' own inner circle challenged him, right? Miriam and Aaron.
Yes, in Numbers 12. They spoke against Moses, ostensibly because of his Cushite wife, though the underlying issue seems to have been jealousy over his unique prophetic status. They said, "Has the Lord indeed spoken only through Moses? Hasn't he spoken through us also?"
A direct challenge to his authority. How did that play out?
The Lord heard it and summoned Moses, Aaron, and Miriam to the tent of meeting. God came down in a pillar of cloud and essentially gave a powerful affirmation of Moses' unique relationship. "With him I speak mouth to mouth, clearly and not in riddles, and he beholds the form of the Lord." Then God's anger burned against Aaron and Miriam, and when the cloud lifted, Miriam was struck with leprosy, her skin described as white as snow.
Leprosy. That's severe.
Extremely. Aaron immediately pleads with Moses for her, acknowledging their sin. Moses cries out to God, "Oh God, please heal her." God relents slightly, saying she must be shut outside the camp for 7 days, and only then could she be brought back in. The entire community had to halt their journey and wait for her purification, a very public consequence for challenging God's chosen leader.
Wow. These internal conflicts are intense.
Yeah.
But then came perhaps the biggest crisis of faith, the spies sent into Canaan.
Ah, yes. Numbers 13 and 14. This is pivotal. Moses sends 12 leaders, one from each tribe, to explore the promised land. They're gone for 40 days. They come back with tangible proof of the land's fertility, pomegranates, figs, and that famous cluster of grapes so large it took 2 men to carry it on a pole. They confirmed it certainly flows with milk and honey.
So far, so good.
But then, the majority report. 10 of the 12 spies gave a frightening assessment. They said the inhabitants were powerful, the cities were fortified, and very large. And crucially, they claimed to have seen the descendants of Anak there, the Nephilim. These figures were associated with giants in their traditions. Their conclusion was one of utter fear. "We seemed like grasshoppers in our own eyes, and so we seemed to them."
They felt completely overwhelmed. But not all of them.
No. 2 spies, Caleb from the tribe of Judah and Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim, gave a radically different report. Caleb silenced the people and urged, "Let us go up at once and occupy it, for we are well able to overcome it." Both he and Joshua insisted the people shouldn't fear because the Lord was with them and had given them the land. Their faith was strong.
So a clear split. Faith versus fear. How did the people react?
Tragically, they listened to the 10 fearful spies. The whole community raised a loud cry, wept all night, and grumbled against Moses and Aaron. They wished they died in Egypt or the wilderness. They even started talking about choosing a new leader to take them back to Egypt. And they wanted to stone Caleb and Joshua for their faithful report.
Unbelievable. Utter rebellion born out of fear. What was the divine judgment?
It was severe and generation-defining. The glory of the Lord appeared, and God essentially declared that because of their unbelief and rebellion, none of the men, 20 years old or older, who were counted in that first census, the ones who had seen God's signs in Egypt in the wilderness, yet tested him repeatedly, none of them would enter the promised land. Only Caleb and Joshua, because they had a different spirit and followed God wholeheartedly, would live to enter it. The 10 unfaithful spies died immediately in a plague before the Lord.
So, an entire generation condemned to die in the desert.
Yes. That was the core of the punishment. They would wander in the wilderness for 40 years. 1 year for each of the 40 days the spies had explored the land. They would bear the consequences of their faithlessness until that entire generation passed away. Their children, the very ones they feared would become plunder, those children would be the ones to inherit and possess the land.
What a devastating outcome. Did they accept it?
Not initially. After Moses told them the judgment, some of them mourned greatly, and then, against Moses' explicit warning that the Lord was not with them, they presumptuously decided to try and go up into the hill country to take the land anyway. Moses and the ark remained in the camp, signifying God's absence from their effort, and the result was predictable. The Amalekites and Canaanites who lived there came down, attacked them, and utterly defeated them, a disastrous consequence of disobedience.
Just one tragedy after another. And the rebellions didn't even stop there, did they?
Yeah.
There was Korah's rebellion.
Right, number 16. This was another major challenge, this time from within the Levites and other tribes. Korah, himself a Levite, along with Dathan and Abiram from the tribe of Reuben, and 250 other well-known community leaders. They rose up against Moses and Aaron. Their claim was essentially, you take too much upon yourselves, all the congregation is holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Why then do you exalt yourselves above the assembly of the Lord?
So challenging the specific leadership roles of Moses and Aaron.
Exactly. Moses proposed a test. He told Korah and his 250 followers to take censers, put fire and incense in them the next day, and present them before the Lord alongside Aaron. God would show whom he had chosen. The next day, as they gathered, the divine judgment was dramatic and swift. Moses warned the rest of the congregation to get away from the tents of Korah, Dathan, and Abiram. Then the earth literally opened up beneath them and swallowed them alive, the men, their families, all their possessions. They went down into Sheol, the grave, and simultaneously fire came out from the Lord and consumed the 250 men who were offering the incense, a terrifying display of divine authority.
You'd think that would settle things.
You would think. But incredibly, the very next day, the rest of the Israelite community started grumbling again, this time against Moses and Aaron, accusing them. You have killed the Lord's people.
Seriously. After seeing the earth swallow people.
It's quite astounding. And immediately, another plague broke out among the people. It spread rapidly. Moses quickly told Aaron to take his censer with incense and fire from the altar and run into the midst of the assembly to make atonement for them. Aaron did so, standing literally between the dead and the living, and the plague was stopped. But not before 14,700 people had died from it, in addition to those who died with Korah.
Just incredible loss of life due to rebellion and grumbling. Was there anything done to finally confirm Aaron's priesthood after all this?
Yes. God instructed Moses to get a staff from the leader of each of the 12 tribes, including one for Levi with Aaron's name on it. These 12 staffs were placed overnight in the tent of meeting before the Ark of the Testimony. The next morning, Moses went in, and Aaron's staff, the one representing the tribe of Levi, had not only sprouted, but it had budded, blossomed, and even produced ripe almonds.
Almonds overnight.
Overnight. A clear, miraculous sign. God then told Moses to put Aaron's staff back before the ark as a permanent sign to the rebels, to hopefully put an end to their grumbling and prevent further deaths.
A powerful, undeniable confirmation. Yet even Moses and Aaron themselves faced consequences later, didn't they? At Meribah.
That's right, Numbers 20. Decades later, near the end of the 40 years, at Kadesh, the community again had no water, and they quarreled bitterly with Moses and Aaron, again wishing they'd died. The Lord appeared and told Moses to take his staff, gather the assembly, and speak to the rock before their eyes, and it would yield water.
Speak to the rock. Seems simple enough.
It does, but Moses, seemingly exasperated and angry after decades of this, gathered the people and yelled, "Hear now, you rebels! Shall we bring water for you out of this rock?" And instead of just speaking to it as commanded, he struck the rock twice with his staff.
He struck it instead of speaking.
Yes, water did gush out abundantly for the people and their livestock, but God immediately addressed Moses and Aaron because they did not trust God enough to honor him as holy in the sight of the Israelites, perhaps by taking credit themselves, shall we bring water, or by disobeying the specific command to speak rather than strike in anger. They were told they would not be the ones to bring the community into the promised land.
Even Moses and Aaron, after everything.
Even them. It's a profound and sobering moment. It really raises questions about leadership, obedience, and the weight of representing God before the people. What does it mean when even great leaders face such consequences for, seemingly, a single act? It underscores the incredible standard they were held to.
And soon after that, Aaron died.
Yes. Shortly after the incident at Meribah Kadesh, God told Moses to take Aaron and his son Eleazar up Mount Hor near the border of Edom. There, Moses removed Aaron's sacred priestly garments and put them on Eleazar, signifying the transfer of the high priesthood. And Aaron died there on top of the mountain at the age of 123. The community mourned him for 30 days.
A poignant end to Aaron's journey. But the challenges continued even after that, didn't they? With snakes.
Yes, Numbers 21. As the people were making a difficult journey, trying to go around the land of Edom, they grew impatient yet again. And again, they spoke against God and against Moses. Why have you brought us up out of Egypt to die in the wilderness? For there is no food and no water, and we loathe this worthless food, the manna.
Déjà vu.
Pretty much. And the consequence this time was different, but equally deadly. The Lord sent fiery serpents, likely venomous snakes, among the people. They bit the people, and many Israelites died.
So what was the solution this time?
The people came to Moses, confessed, "We have sinned, for we have spoken against the Lord and against you. Pray to the Lord that he take away the serpents from us." Moses prayed, and the Lord told him to make a fiery serpent, likely out of bronze, and set it on a pole. Anyone who was bitten by a snake could simply look at the bronze serpent on the pole, and they would live.
Look and live.
Exactly. It required an act of faith and obedience looking towards the provision God had made through Moses. It's another stark reminder of the consequences of faithlessness, but also God's provision for healing when they turned back. Leadership in these times was just relentless, wasn't it?
Absolutely relentless. So as they finally neared the end of the journey, just before entering the land, there were still more challenges, but also some final preparations and even prophecies. Tell us about Balaam.
Balaam. Numbers 22 through 24. This is a fascinating episode. Balak, the king of Moab, sees the massive Israelite camp approaching his border and is terrified. He knows he can't beat them militarily, so he decides to hire a renowned non-Israelite prophet, Balaam, from Mesopotamia, to come and curse Israel for him. He believed a powerful curse could weaken them.
So trying spiritual warfare instead of physical.
Exactly. But God intervenes directly. God comes to Balaam in a dream and explicitly tells him, "You shall not go with them. You shall not curse the people, for they are blessed."
Pretty clear instruction.
Very. Balaam initially refuses Balak's messengers, but Balak persists, sending more prestigious officials with promises of great reward. Balaam waffles a bit, saying he can only speak what God gives him, but agrees to see what God says overnight. God tells him he can go if the men come call him, but only to do what God commands. He seemingly jumps the gun and goes anyway.
And that leads to the famous incident with the donkey.
Yes. One of the most unique stories in the Bible. As Balaam is riding his donkey towards Moab, the angel of the Lord stands in the path with the drawn sword. Balaam doesn't see the angel, but the donkey does. 3 times the donkey tries to avoid the angel turning off the road, pressing against a wall, crushing Balaam's foot, and finally just lying down under Balaam.
And Balaam gets angry.
Furious, he starts beating the donkey, and then the text says, the Lord opened the mouth of the donkey, and it speaks to Balaam. It basically asks, "What have I done to you that you have beaten me these 3 times? Haven't I always served you faithfully?"
A talking donkey.
With talking donkey. Then the Lord opens Balaam's eyes, and he finally sees the angel of the Lord, who rebukes him for his reckless path and tells him the donkey saved his life. It's a powerful, almost comical, yet deadly serious warning about resisting God's will.
So did Balaam end up cursing Israel?
He couldn't. Despite Balak taking him to 3 different vantage points overlooking the Israelite camp and offering elaborate sacrifices each time, hoping for a curse. Each time Balaam opened his mouth, God put words of blessing in it instead. 3 extensive oracles blessing Israel, describing their prosperity, their unique status, their strength like a lion. Balak was furious.
And Balaam delivered some specific prophecies too.
Yes, in his 4th oracle, he looked further into the future. He spoke of Israel's destiny. "I see him, but not now. I behold him, but not near. A star shall come out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel. It shall crush the forehead of Moab. These prophecies look towards future victories and kingship in Israel. It's an amazing testimony to God's sovereignty, using even a reluctant foreign prophet to declare blessing on his people.
Incredible story. But sadly, right after this divine protection, there was a major moral failure involving Moabites and Midianites.
Tragically, yes. Numbers 25. While the Israelites were camped at Shittim, on the plains of Moab, the men began to engage in sexual immorality with Moabite women. And worse, these women invited the men to sacrifices to their gods. The Israelites bowed down to their gods, specifically joining in the worship of Baal of Peor. This involved idolatry and likely ritual prostitution.
A direct violation of the first commandments.
Absolutely. And the Lord's anger burned fiercely against Israel. A devastating plague broke out. The situation climaxed when an Israelite man, Zimri, a leader from the tribe of Simeon, brazenly brought a Midianite woman, Cosbi, the daughter of a Midianite chief, right into the camp and into his tent, in full view of Moses and the weeping congregation.
What happened then?
Phinehas, the son of Eleazar and grandson of Aaron the priest, saw this blatant defiance. Filled with righteous zeal, he grabbed a spear, went into the tent after them, and drove the spear through both the Israelite man and the Midianite woman, killing them instantly. This decisive action, demonstrating loyalty to God above all else, stopped the plague. But not before 24,000 Israelites had died.
Wow. Phinehas' zeal was rewarded.
Yes. God commended Phinehas, saying he had turned back God's wrath by being zealous for God's honor, and God made a covenant of peace with him and his descendants, a covenant of a lasting priesthood because of his zeal. But this incident also led directly to a command for vengeance against the Midianites, because they, along with the Moabites, had deliberately used this tactic to lure Israel into sin at Peor.
So, a war against Midian.
Yes, in Numbers 31, 12,000 Israelite warriors, 1,000 from each tribe, went out to fight Midian, with Phinehas accompanying them with sacred objects and trumpets. They were victorious, killing the kings of Midian, and notably also killing Balaam, who was apparently with them. However, Moses was angry when the army returned because they had spared the Midianite women, the very ones who caused the trouble at Peor.
So what did he command?
He commanded them to kill all the male children and kill every woman who had slept with a man. But they were to spare the lives of all the young virgin girls for themselves. It's a very harsh passage reflecting the brutal realities of ancient warfare and the perceived need to utterly remove the source of the corrupting influence.
And the spoils of war.
Immense. Hundreds of thousands of sheep, cattle, donkeys, plus the 32,000 virgin women. The spoils were divided meticulously, half for the soldiers who fought, half for the rest of the community, and portions from both halves were given as tribute to the Lord, given to Eleazar the priest and to the Levites. There were also detailed laws for purifying the warriors who had killed or touched dead bodies, a 7-day ritual, and for purifying captured items, metal items passed through fire, others washed with water.
A lot of detail about the aftermath of war. And amidst all this, they took another census.
Yes, a second major census, Numbers 26, taken right there on the plains of Moab by Moses and Eleazar, significantly after the plague of Peor. The total number of fighting men, 20 years and older, was 601,730, slightly less than the first census almost 40 years earlier.
And a really sobering point here.
The text explicitly states that among these counted men, there was not one man left from the first census taken in the Sinai wilderness, the one Moses and Aaron conducted.
Except Caleb and Joshua.
Exactly. The entire generation that came out of Egypt and rebelled at Kadesh Barnea had died off during the 40 years, just as God had decreed. This new census was counting the generation poised to finally enter the land. The Levites were still counted separately, 23,000 males 1 month and older, as they received no territorial inheritance.
This generational shift must have brought up new issues, like inheritance.
It did. Immediately following the census, in Numbers 27, you get the case of the daughters of Zelophehad, from the tribe of Manasseh. Their father had died in the wilderness notably, not as part of Korah's rebellion, but just died, and he had no sons. His 5 daughters came before Moses, Eleazar, and the leaders. They argued, "Why should the name of our father be taken away from his clan because he had no son? Give us a possession among our father's brothers."
A bold move, challenging traditional inheritance customs.
It was. Moses brought their case before the Lord, and the Lord declared the request was just. God established new inheritance law. If a man dies and has no son, his inheritance should pass to his daughter. If he has no daughter, it goes to his brothers. If no brothers, to his father's brothers. If none of those, then to the nearest relative in his clan.
So the law adapted to ensure family lines and property rights continued, even through daughters.
Precisely. And later, in Numbers 36, this raised another issue. The leaders of the Lafayette's clan realized if these daughters married men from other tribes, the inherited land would eventually pass out of their ancestral tribe of Manasseh when the Jubilee year redistributed land. So another ruling was made. Daughters who inherit land must marry within their father's tribal clan. This kept the inheritance within the tribe, and Zelophehad's daughters did just that, marrying their cousins. It shows this fascinating interplay between divine law and practical community concerns.
That adaptability is really interesting. We also see land allocation beginning even before they cross the Jordan.
Yeah.
The Transjordan tribes.
Yes, Numbers 32. The tribes of Reuben and Gad, who had very large herds of livestock, saw that the land east of the Jordan River, land already conquered from Sihon and Og, was excellent for grazing. They, along with half the tribe of Manasseh, came to Moses, Eleazar, and the leaders, requesting this land as their inheritance instead of land within Canaan proper.
How did Moses react? He wasn't happy initially, was he?
No, his first reaction was concern. He thought they were trying to get out of fighting alongside their brothers to conquer Canaan, just like the previous generation shrank back. But they assured him that wasn't the case. They promised to build sheepfolds for their livestock and fortified cities for their families there, and then arm themselves and go across the Jordan as vanguard troops, fighting until all the other tribes received their inheritance. Only then would they return.
So they committed to the conquest first.
Yes. On that condition, Moses agreed. He allocated the land east of the Jordan to them. They immediately started building up towns and sheepfolds, a pragmatic solution that addressed their specific needs while ensuring tribal unity for the upcoming conquest.
And as they prepared for settlement, this crucial idea of cities of refuge was established.
Right, in Numbers 35. This was a vital provision for justice and mercy. God commanded them to designate 6 cities, 3 east of the Jordan, and 3 in Canaan proper as cities of refuge. Their purpose was for anyone who killed another person accidentally, unintentionally. The manslayer could flee to one of these cities for safety.
Safety from what?
From the avenger of blood, usually the nearest male relative of the person killed, who had the right, even the duty in that culture, to avenge the death. The city of refuge provided sanctuary until the accused person could stand trial before the congregation. If found guilty of intentional murder, they were handed over to the avenger to be put to death. But if found innocent of intent, if it was truly accidental, they had to remain living within the city of refuge. They couldn't leave its boundaries.
For how long?
Until the death of the current high priest. Only after the high priest died was the accidental killer free to return home without fear of the avenger. It was a unique system balancing the sanctity of life, the need for justice for the victim's family, and mercy for unintentional acts.
A very specific legal framework.
Very. And the chapter also strongly reiterates that intentional murderers must be put to death. No ransom could be accepted for their life.
So, as they stand on the plains of Moab, ready to cross, the guidance system is still in place. The cloud and fire.
Absolutely. Numbers 9 reminds us of that constant divine guidance. The cloud covered the tabernacle by day, looking like fire by night. When the cloud lifted, they set out. When it settled, they encamped. Whether it stayed for a day, a month, or a year, they obeyed its signal. Their entire movement was dictated by this visible sign of God's presence and direction, their ultimate GPS, as you said.
And the silver trumpets.
Introduced in Numbers 10, 2 trumpets made of hammered silver. They had specific uses. Blowing both trumpets summoned the entire community assembly to the tent of meeting. Blowing just one summoned only the leaders, the heads of the clans. They also blew specific patterns of short blasts, alarms, to signal for the different divisions of the camp to set out on the march, in that precise order we discussed earlier. They are essential communication tools for coordinating such a vast group.
And the crucial issue of succession, Moses wouldn't lead them in.
Right. So in Numbers 27, after the decree that he wouldn't enter, God addresses the succession. Moses asks God to appoint a leader so the community won't be like sheep without a shepherd. God tells him to take Joshua, son of Nun, described as a man in whom is the Spirit, and commission him publicly. Moses was to lay his hands on Joshua in front of Eleazar the priest and the whole congregation, giving him some of his own authority so the people would obey him. Joshua would lead, but he would rely on Eleazar the priest to obtain decisions from the Lord using the Urim, a method of discerning God's will, likely involving sacred objects kept by the high priest. It established the future leadership structure.
So the leadership handover was clearly planned, and the book even lists their whole journey.
It does. Numbers 33 provides this remarkable detailed list of the 42 stages of their encampment, all the way from Ramesses in Egypt to the plains of Moab by the Jordan across from Jericho. It's like a historical log of their entire wilderness journey. And finally, Numbers 34 lays out the specific geographical boundaries of the Promised Land, Canaan, that the 9.5 tribes, those west of the Jordan, were to inherit by lot. Eleazar the priest and Joshua son of Nun were designated to oversee the allocation, assisted by one leader chosen from each of those tribes.
So everything's set. The people, the leadership, the land boundaries, they're ready.
They're ready. It's quite the culmination after such a long and arduous journey described in this book. If we try to connect all this, step back and see the bigger picture, what we've just explored in this deep dive, it's really so much more than just a list of rules or a sequence of events. It's a profound study, isn't it, in how a collective identity is forged under the most extraordinary circumstances imaginable, balancing human weakness, human frailty with these immense divine expectations. That tension is just palpable between the need for meticulous order and the reality of chaos, between unwavering faith and recurring doubt. It runs through the whole narrative.
Yeah, what's truly striking, I think, is the sheer audacity of it all. The scale. We've seen these huge populations counted, these incredibly intricate systems of worship and justice set up, and just the raw drama of leadership being tested constantly in the absolute harshest environments. I mean, from the super precise measurements for the tabernacle down to, well, a speaking donkey. It's just packed with details that challenge you but also fascinate you. It really is a masterclass in the human experience under extreme pressure. So what does all this mean for you listening? Maybe next time you hear about a large-scale project, a community facing incredible challenges, or even just the complex logistics of something in our world. Maybe consider the sheer organizational effort involved, the complex human dynamics, the incredible attention to detail needed to guide any group of people through the unknown. This deep dive into numbers, it isn't just ancient history. It feels like a timeless testament to leadership, law, and, frankly, resilience. So here's a thought to leave you with. What stands out most to you about how this nomadic nation managed to build its identity, define its laws, and navigate its destiny right there in the middle of the desert? What does that level of order amidst potential chaos tell us?
Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep getting well informed. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.